Group that represents gas producers has today released analysis by EY that shows the gas industry will be crucial even on the path to net zero out to 2050. A short time ago, I caught up with the head of the Australian energy producers, Samantha McCulloch.
This is new independent analysis that really does show that there is this important and very long-term role for gas in transforming our economy for net zero. And so what EY did in this analysis was look at 350 global scenarios for net zero and then map out 3 specific scenarios for Australia. And what's consistent across all those scenarios is a really important and long-term role for gas. We will be relying on gas to 2050 and beyond. That includes very strong demand for our LNG exports across the region, but also the role for gas in terms of being a partner and backing up renewables to keep the lights on in the power sector, in continuing to fuel our manufacturing sector, and in supporting net zero fuels and technologies like hydrogen and like carbon capture.
So you've got that EY analysis and others would argue strongly that case. Are you worried about the political mood, though, in this building, the Greens and others trying to put pressure on the government to end all new gas projects?
Well, Kieran, what we actually need is an evidence-based, pragmatic discussion about how we're transforming our economy for net zero. You know, this is further evidence that we will need gas as part of the energy mix. It's central to our energy security. It's an industry that's delivering huge economic benefits to the country, but it's also an industry that we need as a partner for the transition. Now, the oil and gas industry is committed to net zero by 2050. That will require gas supply, which the industry is firmly committed to. It also requires new technologies like carbon capture, like low carbon hydrogen to help assist with that transition.
The government announced that enhanced capacity investment scheme last week. No mention of gas in that. Does that worry you?
Well, I think, we do, of course, need to be focusing on renewables as part of the transition. That is a core part of how we will transform our energy system, but it's not the only part. And what we're missing currently in terms of the energy discussion and debate is that more balanced perspective and holistic perspective. We know we're going to need gas, particularly in power generation. The more renewables we're deploying, the more important gas becomes as that firm and reliable backup when solar's not available, when wind's not available. And yet that important role for gas is not currently being reflected in the policy settings. What we're seeing instead is actually barriers to investment in new supply that's needed.
The PRRT it is in Parliament. I understand it might come up for debate this week. It needs to pass the changes by the middle of next year. The government's facing these other amendments put forward by the coalition. Would you urge the coalition to agree with the changes regardless of the amendments? Because surely the last thing you would want as an industry is that the Greens become the playmaker.
This is another example where industry actually needs that certainty and stability for investment. The PRR reforms aim to balance that need for certainty and long-term stability of the policy settings for industry while bringing forward more and earlier revenue for the budget. Look, we would encourage bipartisan support and would certainly encourage the government to be working in good faith with the coalition on the reform agenda. The coalition has indicated that it's willing to engage in good faith. It's been transparent in terms of its asks around supporting the PRRT reforms, and that all of those asks are actually linked to ensuring reliable, secure gas supply for Australian households and industry. And that includes addressing some of the offshore approvals issues and uncertainty that we're seeing on the offshore, which the government itself has acknowledged needs to be addressed.
So you're confident a deal can be done?
I think there should be strong alignment between the government and the coalition in terms of the objectives